Welcome to this edition of my Rolling Diaries. In this session, we're training some no-gi jiu-jitsu, which has been a very long time since I've trained it. Training with training partners Ricky and Zach. We've been working on the shin-on-shin entry to single leg X, to back sweep, to finishing with a footlock. So what we're seeing right now is we're doing some free rolling rounds, but before this we were doing situational training where we isolated that shin on shin to single leg X just to give a chance to practice with some resistance to learn and practice the techniques we were learning and going over, rather than going into the free rolling aspect where you just forget everything you've just been taught. So that's what we're doing. And so when training no gi, I kind of had this thought: is no gi easier than gi jiu-jitsu? In my training history, I would say that I found it easier after taking breaks to go back to no gi jiu-jitsu rather than to go back to gi jiu-jitsu. And so that's one of the reasons why I would find, for me personally, no-gi is easier. It's easier for me personally. Probably because I favour MMA because of my MMA influence. Mixed martial arts, probably my favourite, actually is my favourite combat sport to watch. And back in the day, I favoured more of the CSW, the combat submission wrestling, which is Eric Paulson's grappling system. And so favoured that more because it was also very MMA friendly. And my game probably favours no-gi because my long limbs help me manage distance and control. Like if I were to grab a collar tie from the closed guard, for example, it'd be harder for somebody to break that grip and control and get their posture back because my arm just travels further than most arms. So it's like having a collar grip in gi, which would be my collar tie with no gi. So my long limbs help me manage distance and control, and the low friction naturally helps me move more on my own terms, which is always good, right? But back in the day, I was considered more athletic, more fast, more high mobility, and so the low friction just naturally lends itself better to that style of play. And that's kind of one of the things I'm working on currently, trying to bring that back, trying to bring back high mobility and movement. Within reason, of course. One of the reasons I limited that was because I was focusing on slowing things down, control, guard, really being quite well-rounded in my game rather than just relying on speed and balance on top. I wanted to be equally as dangerous from the bottom as I am from the top, and so that's why I kind of worked to slow things down. But now I want to bring back high mobility and movement and guard passing. But probably the main thing though I'm working on is the grip fighting element. The grip fighting I found when I'm back in the gym I struggled with, because when I'm rolling with the brown and black belts, they beat me very easily in the grip fighting aspect. Partially because when I'm in these arenas where I'm with less experienced people, I'm a bit lazy with the grip fighting. Allow my training partners to kind of get into it and to practice, and then I kind of pick things up as things went along. But in the gym I don't get away with that. They would just get better grips than me, pass my guard, and then just squash me for the rest of the round. So I've figured I need to work on that grip fighting there. I went for that neck crank a la Khabib versus Conor McGregor because I couldn't get the choke properly. But that's what I'm working on currently, and my no-gi game, I think I find it easier to slip back into. Here, like as you can see, talking about being lazy with the grips, just kind of sit to the side, kind of letting him trying to advance position from this kind of side control while I'm keeping tight and not allowing him to mount or shake my back or anything. But now I just square back into him, and we begin from this guard, and to which I quickly sweep him, and then I take this control where I'm on the mount. Now this is kind of where playing around with the mobility aspect. He's trying to use his hands to elevate me and push me away. So now I've hooked inside with my feet into his thighs, and so I'm basically glued to him as he's trying to push me. And then as I feel as he's trying to move, I then float over to the side. And so now I've got this kind of hybrid north-south side control. It's like north-south side control, neon belly almost. And then I just free that space behind the shoulder, and then finish with a Kimura lock. And so we restart, and I take guard again. Now immediately scoot in to try and get to that same kind of position, but I use a single leg X sweep to bump him over, and the leg drag to try and pass the guard, and the round ends. So good round with Ricky there. Next round with Zach. Zach, a bit more well-rounded in terms of his skill set. He's got judo base. He's got some jiu-jitsu experience, but mainly no-gi jiu-jitsu experience. There's this kind of, again, like I was saying, working on letting him get my back, and basically just going to defend myself and then work from my defense rather than going straight into attack. And so I often do this with beginners, and back in the day when I used to have these sessions, of course, gi jiu-jitsu is easier to start because at the very minimum, you just kind of use a t-shirt and shorts, right? And that's how you can use to turn up. But gi jiu-jitsu, you need to buy the gi, you need to buy the belt. And so I just used to do no gi with beginners. But then I started having see the benefit of starting gi jiu-jitsu personally with beginners. You see us saying there about scrambles. Just for some reason, just wanted to go and get that guillotine. I hadn't had a guillotine in a while, and it was a bit scrambly, but I decided to just finish it. But anyway, rolling with beginners and gi, I found it naturally slowed things down, so to help them with not fully relying on explosive movement and strength to get out of positions, and also to slow things down so they actually get used to being in these positions they're fighting for and fighting from. So I found that helped things as well, because when you have high athleticism and you don't know anything, well, you're just going to keep using that high athleticism, and if it works until a point where the technique kicks in, and then you begin to struggle against people you used to beat because they're using more efficient moves than you are. And so using the gi helped kind of slow things down a bit as well. And also with that, I find with gi, you have to work a bit more for your escapes. Like controlling people is naturally harder in no-gi because there's less handles, isn't there? There's just less to grab onto. So probably why I found it easier is because I could be hard to control anyway, and much harder if there's no friction to help. So I found it far more easier in no-gi. Like whenever I trained with higher belts with the gi on, my very thought is this: like, if this is no-gi, I would not be getting ragdolled like this. But it's because it's harder to control people in no-gi. And with that being said, gi training definitely does help my posture and base. I found it a very, very good tool for improving my posture and base. I like the way Matt Serra kind of said, as gi jiu-jitsu is like having a resistance tool. Like that's a part of what it is. It's like a resistance tool. So you actually have to have better leverage in your own body to stop yourself being off balance and manipulated by somebody else pulling on your lapels and sleeves and stuff, don't you? And so, but yeah, so back into this round, like I was saying, I was trying to work more movement, not being lazy with grip fighting. But here, just kind of going back to default here. Granted, this was a few months ago. This is probably earlier in 2024. But now just kind of playing this position here. So this is potentially an arm lock here. It's kind of a shoulder lock that I've got. But Zach has very flexible shoulders, so he doesn't really feel that much, and then he just popped his arm out from the back of my head, and now beginning from half guard here. So half guard is a guard I was trying to not be in because of my Achilles injury. I found this was one of the guards that helped me develop, because it's helpful for me to hide my foot, but also I found it just not requiring as much explosive ability. I could be fairly relaxed in half guard if I have frames and whatnot, and so my calf isn't very much at risk when I held half guard versus maybe holding a closed guard. See there, I was trying to push him back that half guard sweep, but since he's so bendy, he didn't lose balance the other way, so I just had to pull him back up and over my head to sweep him. But that's just the nature, isn't it? Sometimes people are just bendy and they can keep their balance when normally most people would be toppled over. And so here, I'm again being kind of lazy here. Normally, I would just straight away not let my head get controlled. But the thing is here, he's just holding my head, so I quickly now just get up and look to pass the guard. So I'm kind of feeling where his body was, and I just quickly leg dragged as I felt his body going to that, his legs going to that side. I was going to go and then quickly see if I can knee bar before the round had ended, but I didn't get it. But in the next round, we start again. Ricky, I think, is going back to work, so Zach and I will roll for the rest of it. So here, kind of got a butterfly guard, and then controlling wrist. Butterfly is one of those positions I was trying to work on because of my Achilles injuries. But here, it's again just being lazy. I'm watching this and I'm saying just not. It's just like I'm not really engaging at all. But now I'm in close guard, and this is one of the positions that I wanted to get good at before my Achilles injury. Now I'm trying to work back on the close guard. I want my close guard to be really threatening. And I find in the gym that people avoid my close guard like the plague. So it's actually quite difficult to get to that position. But here, I've got this close guard, and I've got this grip on his arm, and it looks like I'm trying to, I think I'm trying to arm drag and then get to his back. That's what I was trying to do there. But then he didn't let me, and he just took this close guard position and got an overhook there. So here, this is a control position that I've been playing around with. It's just a triangle position. And then I've gone to omoplata, and then the omoplata, then the omoplata sweep, and then the take top position, and then since we're going off the mat into the wall, just decide to reset in the center. For my game, I've been, in the last few years, I've been working on getting more confident in the gi and comfortable with the gi with all the different attacks, and it's so I'm trying to develop my game so it is easily transferable between gi and no gi. So there's that sequence we were working on before, showing that shin on shin entry to single leg X to back sweep to foot lock. And so one of the things I'm doing to try and stay comfortable in both gi and no gi is for starters, the grips and controls I tend to use would favor more no gi anyway. So I can use no gi grips in gi, that's fine. But then when it comes to the gi grips in terms of control, I found them as thinking of them as upgrades. So you get how you fly and you can get from standard class or economy to first class. And so in some situations, getting a collar rather than the collar tie, like a collar grip rather than a collar tie, can be an upgrade. And getting a lapel and crossing around somebody's back can be an upgrade, because then I can free my hand rather than keeping that far arm as an underhook, if you can kind of follow what I'm talking about. But that's kind of how I stay comfortable. And most of the moves that I like to do, I can do in gi and no gi. For example, the kimura, the triangle choke, arm bars, I can do them in both gi and no gi anyway. And there's some things which I have been working on in terms of my gi jiu-jitsu game, like trying to lasso, trying to loop choke, and those kind of moves as well. They probably aren't as useful in no gi or as easy as in no gi, but that's just kind of how I've been trying to develop my game in the last few years. But going back to no gi is really nice as well. There I was struggling with getting a good angle on the head and arm, but I decided to keep the control, stay on top, and not allow him to get any kind of guard. And so as he's moving, I got to this space where I've got this kimura trap again. Kimura trap seems to be something I find quite regularly, and probably one of my favorite attacks was the kimura, but I've challenged myself to not go for kimura as such, but use it as a control position. And then there I managed to use that to then get to the armbar. And so we restart. I'm just kind of taking this seated position. And so depending how he approaches, I go shin on shin or butterfly. But I'm just kind of shelling up here, just seeing here how he wants to control my neck. But first he needs to control his own hair. It's going everywhere. And so here he goes to my back, but without any hooks. And so I'm just kind of staying low in a ball, then putting my back on the mat, and then squaring up into him now. And I think I've got kind of a leg entanglement half guard thing going, or a Z guard. Yes, I got a Z guard. And so using this ability to stretch with those legs locked to do like a sweep, threatening their toe hold, but I didn't really want a toe hold. But he's underhooked now, as most people would try to do. And so I'm used that to get a Darce choke entry. That's one of the attacks which I started to think of years ago. But anyway, we now go into the next round. Anyway, the Darce, thought of that years ago because of my long limbs. I might as well try and make use of them to attack with Darce chokes. Here, this shin on shin to sweep to I don't know really what you call that sweep, but basically shin on shin to off balance, and then I capture both ankles and then go to the far side and complete this sweep. Okay, so now I've got the side control, and he's kind of still rolling around. So I'm kind of doing this floating back control or turtle control, where you don't take the hooks, but you keep tight to their body, so you don't get regarded or anything if you try to take a hook and they turn into you, for example. So here I'm kind of kneeling behind him, threatening the neck, but I think I want to really just advance position. But he's underhooked that leg, so I lace that foot to the far side just to see, could it be a triangle, could it be another attack, or could it just go for an arm bar? So I've kind of got myself some options there. And I'm just kind of waiting for him to do something, or just for me to kind of figure out what I want to do. So he goes to his knees, so I flatten him out a bit more. And so now I'm thinking more of a choke, but I think I've got both hooks in now. Yeah, I think I've got both hooks in, but then I try to pull him back onto me so then I can get a better like seatbelt style back control. And so these kind of positions I can do gi and no gi, but here I think I've just gone for an arm. And what I've done here, I've used the Kimura trap. I'm also controlling his hand as I go for this arm bar. And there he tried to hitchhiker, but he realized he couldn't actually rotate because I was controlling his hand, so he couldn't change the angle of his elbow to then be able to roll out. But what I find with training, maybe I can agree with this as well, but most people do have a preference between gi and no gi. Some people prefer the no gi because you have more of the public no gi figures who are very vocal with it, and also they tend to be more, I guess, affluent with being able to earn money with the no gi stuff. And so then of course that brings some eyes and attention and preference as well. I think my fingers probably prefer no gi, because if I haven't trained gi jiu-jitsu for a while, or even if I have, I find like my fingernails can just, my fingertips and all that can get really affected, and my cuticles just bleed. So I'm always having to tape my fingers, just annoying. But like I was saying before, I find it easier to go back to no gi training after a long time off of training gi. But yeah, like gi training is fun. I've found ways to enjoy both a lot, and for myself, gi gives me a lot more to think about. No gi does give me things to think about, but not the same degree as gi. Gi makes me have to think that I need to use more efficient means of trying to escape. Certainly, if my legs are entangled, I can't just slip out as easily as of leg entanglements as I can with no gi. But yeah, most people do have a preference. I probably prefer training more gi these days, just because I guess I find it that's more along the lines of places I want to improve personally, rather than just the training aspect of it. So here in this position, I'm working an overhook. I just kind of let him pass my guard, but I wanted this mirror lock. As you can see here, I kind of trap that arm, and then I extend my body when I lock that other leg in half guard, and then got the mirror lock, which is like a shoulder lock, which after they underhook your arm. It's quite a tricky one. You can get mirror locks from many different places, but But yeah, I like the mirror lock anyway. And so here, just did a quick sweep. Now I'm looking to pass the guard, so a quick knee slide to that far side. Again, one of the things I wanted to bring out more is that kind of movement style. And so now I've got to side control, and he's tried to underhook me again, and so now I've got my head and arm, and this is the kind of stuff that I like to do in no-gi. So this gone to my Peruvian necktie, hadn't done this in a while, and so I stepped over with that leg and then completed the squeeze. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this edition of Rolling Diaries, and see you in the next videos.